If you want to create your own data for the first time, whether you collected it in a Venza and have a layer that you can share, you can follow the PowerPoint for that, or you're going to want to make a new field collection layer, you're going to want to first start off by going to your content. From there, this is where you make a new item. This shows all the items, whether they're maps or layers that you have created in the past under your content. We're going to go over to new item. This allows us to create a feature layer where you can collect a point, line, and polygon on its own, or you could import a layer from your device, such as a KML or KMZ. Anything today, you can refer to the PowerPoint, or you can just watch one of these videos, and we'll stick it up on YouTube for you guys. So you define the layer, and let's name it something. I'm going to call this one bird observations. You can either make it a point, line, or polygon layer. So maybe I wanted to do off-highway vehicle routes, illegal trails that you found on your park, or illegal trails, just user trails. You could do a line layer. Maybe you wanted polygons where you were going to set up interpretation areas or something. Let's just do a point layer today. Hit next. Title bird observations. Maybe I give it a tag if you want. Bird observations GIS demo. And this is a long process, takes about 30 seconds or so, where it's creating this online. So this is just available for you right now. If you have other people, staff that you're going to be working with, you're going to want to share this item to be a little bit more broad. So if I go back to content, now you'll see that bird observations is there. And these little symbols will tell you if it's more of a layer or a map or something else. But yeah, we'll click back on bird observations and we have to finish setting up this layer. Okay, so once you've created your layer, you're going to go to the settings page. And some things I like to do is I like to prevent this item from being accidentally deleted. So if you're afraid of, a lot of like getting into GIS is being afraid to click the wrong buttons. So that's a nice helpful one. Save it as you go. And then let's look at editing. This is really, really cool. Let's look at your brain's thinking. So I want to keep track of who's editing the data. So if I'm going to be sharing this with my rangers, I want to see like, okay, who captured this point there and so on. And for enable sync, that's a good one too. That'll allow you to work offline and collaborate with your different rangers. Then down at what kind of editing is allowed. Right now you can do everything, but maybe you want to check can't delete. So that means everything will get uploaded, but you won't, the rangers can't delete each other's features. What can other editors see? You could make it so that they can only see their own features. So like imagine if there was a competition of who could document the most, you could see just your own features or something like that. All right, and then the last thing at the very bottom is a checkbox to allow you to export the data. That's going to allow you to export to Excel. So if you are like, this is important. So if you were like, if it was very private or protected, you might not want other people to export it. You could make it public, but not allow the public to download it. And that kind of keeps it secure. All right, I'm going to save this real quick. All right, the next thing we got to do is we want to set up the fields that are on here. So right now there's no data. We haven't collected any points. It says there's 0 points on this layer. When I go to fields, this is what it comes in preset as. Nothing really that helpful right now. It does have a creation and edit date and the original creator. So that's really cool. It'll keep track of which rangers are doing what edits on the layer. But we want to add a couple of fields. Like we want to add the species name, maybe the activity, like what that bird is doing, or also like a notes field. So here you go, just add the field names. So field name, usually you don't use special characters and you don't have spaces, but you can use an underscore if you do want to separate those out. The display name can be anything. You got 4 different types of what your data can be. So that's how we keep things organized. It could either be a date, a string is a combination of words and letters and numbers. An integer is a whole number, like 1 through 10, no decimals, and double is decimals. So I know this is a lot, but bear with me, it's going to be pretty cool. All right, I'm going to add another field called notes. And this is like a text field, so it's a string. But what if I want them to be writing like a whole nice like Ralph Waldo Emerson biography about each of these and a nice long description for each bird? I might change the length of this field to be 1,000 letters, or you could make it 10,000, but the length is how many letters you can have in that text box. So it won't cut people off if they're trying to write a big observation. Like imagine if this was like we're not trying to take over what you guys do, but if this was like a police report, you'd want to have a much longer field length where you could write the whole description of the event. So I'm going to make this one 500 for now. I also want to do the count of how many birds were observed, bird count. And that's going to be a whole number because I don't want to be looking at half birds. That'd not be a good day. And you could also create a default value. So if it's in most cases going to be 1, save the rangers some trouble and just make the default value 1, and they can change it if they saw like 10 birds there. It doesn't even have to be a number though. It could be like yes or no. Was this bird healthy or sick? And the default value could be healthy. Last I want to do is make something that we can build a list off of. So I'm going to do bird activity. This is also a string. And we're going to put in a couple of different activities. All right, so now this is what your layer looks like. It's got the species name down here, notes, the count, and bird activity. I want to make it easier so that the rangers don't have to type in every single time. So I want to make some predefined options of what those 3 birds are. What you do, you click on the layer that you want to work on and say create list. Again, it's a lot of setup, but it saves them a ton of headache in the field and makes it really fast. So you can put in the maybe 3 different types of birds, or imagine a different scenario. And I'm pretty sure on the coded value side, that's the one that you don't want to use, like special characters or spaces. So you'll see on BlueJ, I'm just going to use an underscore. But label is like display, so you could have special characters like the raven. But we're not so excited about that. But all right, I'm going to save those. And I also want to add a list for the activities to make that an easy drop down. So I'm going to say feeding is one option, nesting, and soaring. And you're going to hit save here. So imagine if you had already collected a whole bunch of data, like maybe we took a bunch of bird observations from Avenza. You could also do this thing called generate list, and it would be able to look at the different features you've collected already. And so maybe you already had 4 different types of activities, and it would make a list from those so that you can use them going forward as your standard dropdown. And all this to show you guys, I know you might not have the time to learn all this, but it does show you that there is a good, easy way to set these things up that make a lot of sense and that's smart for use in the field. All right, I'm going to go back to overview, and there's one last important step. We talked about we want to be able to enable attachments or photos. There's a weird way to get here. It's shown in the PowerPoint, but you're going to scroll down and click on the actual bird observation layer. This is kind of like the home page that we're at here. And when I do that, down here, there's a little button that says Enable Attachments. And that should be good. The last thing I'm going to do is I want to share it to my organization so that Leah and I can both work on it. We're doing this project together. You could also add a thumbnail too. So if you wanted to just add a quick picture of a bird so that you knew what this layer looked like and recognized it in your content, you know, I got to go to that bird layer. So I'm going to share this to TDEC. If you don't want anyone else working on it, you can keep it private to yourself. I wouldn't put it as public unless you have a real need for like the public to be collecting this data or you're sharing the results publicly. But for now, keep it within TDEC. You could also make a special group too. That's just your park if you really needed to keep it just to the park level. And we have all sorts of different groups on ArcGIS Online, like there's a Cumberland Trail group, natural areas. Makes sense in their workflows with like natural areas. They want to keep their special species all together. All right, I'm going to save it and turn it over to Leah now, and she's going to show you how to do this in the field. So we've done the first step, which is creating the layer.
You should see my screen. So this is ArcGIS Online where Andrew was just working. I've signed in and I'm gonna click on map because now that Andrew has made the layer, I want to make a map out of it that I can use in the field. So that map button opens up the platform called Map Viewer, and I'm gonna go ahead and add a layer on the left right here. And since Andrew made the layer, it's not under my content. It's going to be under my organization. And you'll see right here at the very top is the layer he just made. So I'm going to click this plus button to add that to my map. And I'm going to go back to my layers and you'll see it listed in the pane. For field work, I'm going to go ahead and zoom into Tennessee. This base map, which is just the background, is not very helpful in the field for me, so I want to add some imagery. So I clicked the base map options button here. I'm going to zoom or scroll down to imagery hybrid. And now we have some really good imagery to use out in the field. All right, now I'm going to save this map. So I'll click this folder here, click Save As. We're going to do bird demo 4. I'm going to save it. And just like that, I've already created a web map. So once you create the web map, you need to prepare it for ArcGIS Field Maps, which is an application that you would get on your phone. So to prepare that map for field maps, we're going to go to a separate website called ArcGIS Field Maps. And I'm going to reload this. And the map that I just created, Bird Demo 4, is now showing up. So I'm going to click on that to open up the settings. Give it a second. There we go. So over here again in the layers pane, you'll see I have one layer that can be edited. If I click on that layer, you'll see that right now my form, they call this a smart form. It just makes collecting data in the field much easier and cleaner. You see that it's empty right now. So I'm going to go over to the form builder on the right, and I'm going to add all 4 fields that Andrew just created. Okay. So this allows you to kind of customize what the form looks like for your staff. So if I click on species name, this first question in the form, I can go ahead and change the display name. I can write a description. So what species? Question mark. This input type is really cool. This allows you to kind of change the display of that question. So right now it's set to a combo box, which is a drop-down list. In the field, I like to use radio buttons, which is our other option for a list. And that is an expanded list. So it's just one less click I have to worry about in the field. If I wanted to move notes down to the bottom, I just click and drag. All right, and then let's go to bird count. So you can see the input type for bird count is already set to an integer because of the field type that we chose. It's only going to allow you to input whole numbers. So let's see. How many is our description? I can make this a required question if I wanted to by just checking this box right here. And then bird activity, that's the same drop-down box. So I'm going to do radio buttons for that. And then if I click on notes, right now it's displaying as a single line text field. I'm going to make it multi-line just so I can see more of the notes when I type them out. All right, so that form looks pretty good. So I'm going to click save. And as this green bar runs out, we'll be ready to move on. All right, so if I go over here to the left where it says offline, you'll see that offline maps have been turned on. And it's because my layer right here has a green check mark, and that's because we enabled sync when we set up the data layer. All right, so I think we're ready to go out into the field now. So I'm gonna share my screen from my phone. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so if you haven't already gotten the ArcGIS Field Maps application, just go to your app store and it'll look like the second app from the left, the blue one. I'll click that. It's going to have you log in using your ArcGIS license. And if you don't see the map that you're looking for already, you'll just click in the search. I'm going to write bird. And there it is, bird demo 4. I'm going to click on that. It's going to open the map to my location. And you're ready to start collecting data. So I'm going to click the blue plus at the bottom right. And it's going to add a point. Wherever your crosshairs are on the map is where your point is going to go. So I'm going to go over to Tim's Ford. And let's see. I'm going to add a point. I'm going to click update point. And now my point is right under that crosshair. All right, it's going to let me take a photo because we enabled attachments. I can also attach a photo or a document if I need to. I'm going to choose the species name, sparrow, and you'll see this is the form we just set up. The bird count is already defaulted to 1, and I'm okay with that. Bird activity, nesting, notes, test. All right, and then I'll just click submit. And you'll see my bird data is right there. All right, so let's say that your park doesn't have good cell service or Wi-Fi. So right now I'm using an online map because I'm just at my house. But if we go back to maps, in your account settings at the top left, you'll click on that icon. Under general, you want to make sure the auto sync is turned on. This means that when you are offline and you come back to good service or Wi-Fi, all the data that you collected offline will be automatically synced to ArcGIS Online. So it's one less thing you have to remember to do when you come back if it's turned on. To download an offline map, you'll just click the ... next to the map and do add offline area. So if I zoom in, you'll see a bounding box. That bounding box is what's going to be downloaded offline. So if that box is too small for you, all you need to do is change the level of detail to something larger. You'll zoom out, move that box over your park or whatever area you want to collect data in, and you'll click download area. You'll want to do this while you're in the office or at home on good cell service or Wi-Fi, but once that's downloaded, you can collect data completely offline. So I'll show you an example of what that will look like. So for one smart park where we collect other things from our previous training, you'll see that on the device area 28, that's an offline map. And when I zoom out, you'll see that's the only data that has been downloaded.
And that's great too, because it saves space on your phone. So you could just grab a small bounding box for the area that you're working in or around your park. You don't have to download the entire state of Tennessee. And you can rename them too. So if she goes back to offline maps, so say your park, like maybe you're someone who works at Hiawassee Koei and you wanted one map. Oh, he's not here anymore. But let's say you were going to be going out to a different park and visiting a different park for some reason, search and rescue training. You could download one for the park you're about to visit and then one for your home park. And you can just rename them, keep them in your phone, and update them with your edits whenever you get a chance.
All right, I think that covers field maps.
Yeah, let's look at the One Smart Park thing too real quick while we have everybody's attention and show you guys what we have in there right now.
Sure. So again, I'm going to go back to my map list. If you don't see One Smart Park, just search for it and it'll come up in all caps. And you'll have the online version unless you do an offline map. All right, so if I click the plus button at the bottom, you'll see that we have park signage, cultural resources, natural resources such as those landscape features, and park assets. And it's also easier. There's over 300 park asset options. So if you don't want to scroll through, just search like bench, click it. It'll ask you to take a photo, your park name, that is a required field. You can give it a name, a description, the status. Again, these are all optional fields except for park name, so you can be as detailed as you want or not. So we'll say it's proposed, the condition, the day it was built, threats or evidence of disturbance. You can write some notes. Any action needed. This is a cool field is accessibility review. So our Access 2030 team has access to this layer. So if you click yes, the next time this team is at your park, they'll make sure to review this park asset to see if it meets the requirements for accessibility so that we can promote that to people who need it. And then lastly, public view, which is also a required field. So basically this allows you to hide things from the public or make things viewable to the public. So our dream would be to have an interactive map of your park in the future. So if this feature might be dangerous or special culturally and you don't want the public to go exploring, you would say no, but if it is a public feature, then you would say yes. And we'll just click submit.
And so that's like a longer built out form. We built it the same way we showed you earlier. So if you have a long in-depth form that you want to build, this is a really sweet, easy way to do that. And she's also able to toggle on multiple layers at the top. So there's a little stack, it looks like square pancakes at the top. That shows you all the different layers you got in your map. So if you do make a special project where we talked about having points and polygons, you could have some of them turned on and some turned off and go back and forth collecting those. While you're out in the field, you could collect things on One Smart Park or switch over to that special bird count project, all just from your phone while you're out in the field and sync everything up when you hit Wi-Fi again. Awesome. Thanks, Leah, for showing all that. Really cool stuff. Next, we're going to show you, Leah's going to keep collecting maybe like 2 or 3 more points of these bird counts. I'm going to show you just how fast it shows up online and how you can make a quick map to print out for a special event related to that.
Hey, Andrew, you're on mute.
Oh, no way. I said so much good things. Right. So we covered all these different things here so far. And now we're going to be working on how to make a pretty map from the data that we've collected and the stuff that we already have available to us. We're going to use a combination of statewide layers and custom layers, kind of pulling that value together. So for when you're making your first map, this is actually the easy step, is you're just going to hit the map button. Today I'm making a special events map. So today we're going to have the Tim's Ford bird race, where they have to go around to those bird count locations, see how many birds they can identify and keep on running their race. So I'm going to start off by saving this map and call it the Tim's Ford bird race 2023. And this might be the second time I've done this, so I'm going to -2 or 2.0. How's that sound? And save this map. In the past, if you've made maps using our like Smart Parks data viewer and stuff and did all sorts of changes, it didn't save when you were done. This is the way you got all your accounts should be set up. And if they're not, please let me know, where you have a creator license where you can actually save this map and work on it a year from now and make some changes. So all the effort that you do will stay with us. I'm going to add some layers. I can look in my content where I have that bird observations, or I could look in my organization. Either way, still got those bird observations because I created it. And I'm going to hit add. Let's see what happens. Let's zoom on down. Look at that. Leah's already collected 2.4 points for these bird observation areas. And that's why this is the value of like our syncing and having this whole online collaborative thing. Is it's really fast, really smart, super secure. It all shows up and doesn't just end up in some storage cabinet at central office. Your data is your own to use from now on. So that's really cool. Because I don't really like what these points look like, I want to change the symbology of this off the bat. On the left, you have a whole bunch of buttons. I don't memorize what the symbols actually are, so I just kind of hover over until I see what I'm looking for. The same thing on the right too. We have styles and filters. So I'm going to style these bird points a little bit differently real quick. You can hit style options and change it to a specific point. So maybe just these orange circles, that works for now. You can also change the color at any point. Let's make them green. What's really, really sweet too, like imagine if you've been working on this project for a long time, or maybe you collected stuff with Avenza and you want to see a heat map of where these are. I hear that term thrown around because you guys are familiar with that. You can make a heat map versus based off of a cluster of points. In the styles, instead of doing a single symbol, click on heat map, and there you start to see it. As you zoom out, these would blend together. There's a lot of styling options too, so that you can make like the area of influence larger and stuff, and soften the edges less, and so that they blend together a little bit more. It just makes a lot more sense when you have more than one point. But I'm gonna just switch on back to just single symbols and make that easy for us. You can make the symbols bigger, smaller. I'm going to keep this, maybe make it like 20, 26. Yeah, that's fine. And we're good to go. So yeah, we got a quick map of those 4 points. Now I want to look at some of those statewide data layers to give it some context. I'm going to add in by searching for park assets. And there it is, a layer created by Leah called Park Assets. I'm going to start yodeling if I say that too quickly. Awesome. So you'll see tons and tons of park assets that we collected one day while we were at Tim's Ford. If we zoom out for the whole state, you're going to see all sorts of other assets. But this is just a tiny bit of what we're about to have. We're going to pull in all that data that you guys did with the comprehensive assessment of your state parks and get these all into your park symbolized. So your park is going to be full of really, really great points. all pre-symbolized and in the right locations. So that's our hope. We're hoping to get to that in the next couple of weeks. All right, so I'm looking at this and I'm trying to do this road race, but this is really busy. I don't want to show all this stuff. Like, yes, it's great that we have it all, but I want to try to filter it out so we don't have so many of these park assets showing up. So I'm going to go over here to filter. And I'm going to click on the layer that I want to filter is park assets. And add an expression. I know the term expression makes it seem so scientific, but all GIS is patience and learning where to click certain buttons and practicing it. So instead of park, I'm going to change it to asset type and it defaulted to parking. And you can see that it's filtering out, the stuff is grayed out underneath. It's about to remove all those from the map and only keep parking. But I don't want to just do one asset. I'd like to have a couple different things on here. So instead of saying is, I'm going to use includes, and I'm going to look for a couple values. I want the visitor center down here. I'm going to look for trailheads. So you can kind of see where we're going with this. Imagine you're trying to make a quick custom map. Maybe you're going to do, maybe you're going to have like a volunteer day or something like that at your park, and you want to show the folks where they're supposed to meet. Yes, it's a lot of effort to do this, but you wouldn't even have to collect stuff in the field. You can use this existing park assets layer and quickly make a map that shows just the stuff that you want. I'm going to show also the basketball court because that's a pretty recognizable feature there, and some picnic shelters. All right. You see all these here, and when I hit save and done, boom, everything else disappears. So that's really sweet. Now we have a nice, easy, clean map. And you're already doing some mapping, GIS, you're experts now. All right, let's add a little bit more context. I know there's a lot of trails at Timms Ford. So what I'm going to do is look for the TDEC public trails. And you might notice in the next month or two that some of this might be a little bit out of date. We're working on getting all the updates from the last 2 years basically onto this layer. You're going to look for the ones that have this big check mark. That's like an authoritative layer. We send this out to the public too. And you add it to your map. And these nice white lines come in. So that's great and all, but I'm having trouble seeing that on the map. I like that it has this dashed line, but the color is not really working for me. So what I'm going to do is let's go to the styles again. Let's make this look a little bit differently. You can actually style it based on a field too. So right now it is being done by blaze color, but for some reason in this data set, all the colors at Timms Ford were just white. Some parks keep all their trails the same color. Other parks really work on having different color blazes for each of their trails. And if you do symbolize it by blaze color, I'm going to zoom out real quick to a different park where you can see that in action, like Fall Creek Falls. If you do see this and you're like, hey, the color is not right, just let us know. Shoot us an email and we can change it in the metadata to show you, say what color it's supposed to show up as. Okay, but for our effort today, I don't care about the colors of the trails. We're not even going to be following those. So I'm going to remove the attribute that it's being colored by, and that's going to turn them all to black. So that's a little bit easier to see, but we can have some more fun with these styles as well. So instead of a basic line, you can do a dashed line as well. You got arrows, dashed lines. I like this one here. It's nice and thick, and it's kind of like two colors, so it does help pop off the terrain. There's a gray and a black, and I can actually change, I'm going to change the gray that's underneath to something that's a little bit easier to see. Yeah, ooh, I got lucky with my color choice. And maybe the color on top is going to be this like little magenta color. Yeah. At any point, you can make the top line or the bottom line thicker to show up. And yeah, very beautiful. What's really sweet to me, I think, is that it remembers your most recent color choices. So you can kind of theme out a map without having to be like, oh, what color exactly did I use? You can also change the transparency and width of any of these, make them super thick, but we're not going to do that for this project. All right, looking good, looking a little candy cane-ish. I'm going to change that just a little bit. I don't want you guys to get sick on me over here. Okay. All right, so we got some stuff going on here. What I want to do is I don't really like how things are being stacked on top of each other. I don't find that very helpful. So I'm going to go to our layers, and you can just drag things around to be on top. So I want park assets on top. Actually, the bird observations on the very, very top with the trails on the bottom. And we're pretty much all set. I'm going to save it before I go any further, just in case my battery dies or something like that. And yeah, we've got all those points. Later on in another video, we'll show you guys how to edit these points from the computer instead of being in the field, how to move stuff around. But if you were to click on any of these right now, we have a pop-up that gets created with that data. So we saw that it was a sparrow, that was a drop down, the activity was nesting, the count was 1. Exactly. Some of you can leave it blank because we allowed null values. So that's all great stuff. All right, the last thing I want to do to make this an actual road race map is add some sketch notes. So you don't have to go hardcore and make a whole like GIS layer every time you want to do something. That would be way too much work. Sometimes you just want to add some notes to this. So what you do is go over here on the far right, there's a sketch button. When I click that, you have a whole bunch of different things. So I want to show the start and finish of my race, where it's going to go. I'm going to draw the route and then some areas where we're going to have the first aid stations during this road race. So I'm going to drop a point, and you can obviously, like everything else, you can change the symbol to be whatever you want. Actually, we're just going to keep it as a point. We'll see what happens. But yeah, you can change the color of these markers to be a little bit different if you'd like. I'm going to have the finish line be right around here. And that's kind of small, so let's beef that up a little bit. Awesome, and the starting point is going to be back here at the visitor center. That was easy, didn't have to do any kind of GIS things, you're just drawing at this point. Next, I want to draw the first aid stations. Right now, it's going to be a gray polygon. Let's make that kind of yellow so that it's easy to see and pretty transparent. So one of the first aid stations is going to be over here. I'm going to just go boop, 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 boop. Double click to finish. There's going to be another one over here at this trailhead. And you're good to go. Next, I want to add and call these out and say what it's going to be. So you can either type before or after. First aid 1. Drop that right here. First aid 2. Just change it to a 2. And you're good to go. So that's really, really fast map making, in my opinion. And the last thing I want to do is draw the route of where this race is going to be. It's going to start at the visitor center and follow along this trail. I know this is not perfect, but we're going to stop at that bird observation center. They got to come over there. We're going to cross a little bridge. And then we're going to go past the basketball court and finish up here. Sweet. I made a nice black line that shows the race trail. What's really fun, what I like, is you can change the symbology to be arrows. And now there's a couple different options. Like, look at this. You can actually see the direction of that route because that's the direction you drew it. If you wanted to go from south to north, start it in the other order and the arrows will face that direction. And of course, you can change the color and stuff of these. So I might make instead of black on the background, I'm going to make it a nice little green. Not too intense. And the thickness is kind of crazy to me, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Here we go. And if at any point you need to move something, like the first aid station is like, oh, I actually want to move it over here, you can do that. So these are all just sketches. You'll notice too that the park assets is sitting underneath the sketches. So if you want, just move sketches down to the very bottom, and now it's looking a lot better. All right, so we're pretty close to being done here. The last thing I'm going to do is I want to print this map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it and zoom into what I want to print. It's going to print out everything that's in this view. And so I'm going to call this the overview map. Just come on down over here to more and you'll see a print button. Awesome. It gives it a title. It's actually taking the same title that you named your map. I'm going to call this the overview one because it kind of shows the whole course. You can change the file format to be, if you just want to send a quick picture, maybe choose a PNG or a JPEG. And you can even have it include a legend that will tell you what each of these features are in the north arrow, so the runners can bring it around with them. When you hit export, it takes maybe 30 seconds for it to generate the map. And there you have it. In less than an hour, I showed you how to collect the data in the field. We made a layer, made a web map, and a printable map. I know it's not beautiful, but that's a proof of concept, and it's really fun at any point. So let's say it's 2024, you want to come back. You can come back to the same course race. You can change, you could use the sketch button and redraw where you want the course, but keep everything else the same. You can move those first aid stations, add some different text, and you'd be all set. So it's your map. Now you're starting to have your own maps in your catalog to use forever, and it's really cool. Just waiting for this to finish printing, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Does anybody have any questions right now? If you want to throw them in the chat or special projects that you're interested in, please do so. I'm going to try a different file format. It didn't seem to like that. Lee is also going to stick again, if you haven't seen it, our survey, our end of the year survey. I know some of you have already taken this, but I'm going to say it one last time. This is our 4th session of this. We're trying to figure out what are we going to cover in February. Do you have some special projects? Do you want us to come out to your park to do some mapping with you? We would love to do that. So just let us know. We're talking about figuring out field days to train rangers and staff. We'd love to travel around and kind of help you guys where you're at and set you up for a whole day with projects. All right, so here's the map I printed out, and it looks pretty darn good. Oh, at the bottom here it is. Oh, shoot. I must not have clicked include legend. Okay, well, we'll try one more thing. So I want to focus on this first aid station too. What's really nice is if you make one map, you can zoom into different places. And by doing that, you can kind of print off different views of the same map. So you don't have to create like 4 different maps. You just zoom in to a different area. So maybe I'll draw the finish line here. I'm going to try print, and I'm going to call this one finish line. And maybe I'll try a JPEG this time, include legend, and cross my fingers. It has been working where it does show the legend, but we'll see what's going on here. So does anybody have any special projects? If there's anything in the chat, you can let me know too. All right, cool. It did the Tim's forward finish line zoom. So not a lot of icons were on here, but it did call out and say that that is basketball and that's the TDEC public trails layer that you're seeing underneath it. If you want to change what comes in your legend, so it said bird observations demo 4, I'm just going to call it bird points. So you can rename it here so that when you print the map, it just says something simple. Same with TDEC public trails. Maybe I just want to rename it and call it trails. Next time I go to hit the print map, that's what's going to show up. The couple other cool things you can do is you could change the base map. So if you wanted it to be imagery because you were zooming in on where the finish line is and you want to really station those rangers, they've got some pretty good imagery options. These are just the base maps. In a future series, we're going to show you all sorts of really sweet other layers that you can pull in. We've worked with Reelfoot Lake to show them how to get a leaf off imagery so that they could map all of their eagle nests. And I think that was a really cool project. There's a whole bunch of different options. I'll show you a couple other ones you're going to have access to. There's all these like scientific layers as well. So if you're ever interested in looking at critical habitat in your park, or looking at the habitat cores or wetlands or flood areas, these are all free layers that you can pull into your maps to use. There's also tons of different imagery, terrain. We've talked about this in other videos, but we're going to make a session that shows you how to really make your own park map. What we want to do for you guys is make a way to have like your own like park homepage map where it has everything, all your different projects all in one place, everything that's useful for you guys. So yeah, these are just where we're heading right now, but I'm going to stay on the line and let us know what other things you might want to work on. But thanks for coming today, and thank you, Leah, for the demos, and we're excited to hopefully get out to the field and work with you guys soon. Thank you.